Welcome back to Hidden Car Gems, the place where we talk about cars that make absolutely no sense, but somehow end up becoming legends. And today's car? This might be just the wildest, dumbest, and most unnecessary thing AMG has ever built. Because this isn't a supercar. It's not even an SUV. It's a frickin' minivan, a people mover. The kind of car you'd expect to see parked outside a school, not blasting down the Autobahn. But AMG, they looked at this bland family hauler and thought, you know what this needs? A hand-built V8 that screams to 7,000 RPM. This is the Mercedes R63 AMG, the one and only AMG minivan ever made. Back in 2005, Mercedes launched the R-Class, and here's the thing. Even Mercedes didn't really know what it was supposed to be. They called it a Grand Sports Tourer, which is basically German marketing speak for we glued a wagon, an SUV, and a van together, and prayed somebody would buy it. It had space, comfort, gadgets, and leather, but it had no real identity. Buyers looked at it and went, it's fine, I guess. It was the kind of car you see at an airport shuttle service, or maybe in the garage of someone who couldn't decide between an E-Class wagon and an ML SUV. Most car makers would have just killed the project right there. But AMG, these maniacs saw this soccer mom van and decided to do something completely insane. They thought, this needs 1,000 horsepower. Let's ruin some tires and scare some children. And in 2006, that's exactly what they did. They took this awkward-looking family hauler, shoved in their pride and joy V8, and birthed the R63 AMG. Under the hood sat AMG's M156 engine, a naturally aspirated 6.2-liter V8, hand-built in a Falterbach. And yes, technically it's 6,208 cc, but AMG called it a 6.3, just for tradition's sake. The same monster engine you'd find in an E63, a CLS63, even the SUV Gullwing, only now it was stuffed into what looks like a baked potato on wheels. It cranked out 507 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. That's 630 Newton-meters for the metric crowd. To put that into perspective, that's more power than a Ferrari 360 Modena in a 7-seater minivan. Let that sink in. And because the R-Class was heavy, over 2.3 tons, or about 5,100 pounds, AMG gave it 4MATIC all-wheel drive and a 7-speed AMG speed shift automatic. The result? This 5,000-pound family bus could launch from 0 to 60 in about 4.6 seconds. That's 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in roughly the same, which meant that, in a straight line, this van could keep up with a Porsche 911 Carrera of the same era. That's right, you could gap sports cars with the entire soccer team in the back. Top speed, electronically limited to 155 miles per hour or 250 kilometers per hour, like most AMGs. But if you ticked the AMG driver's package, it would stretch to 171 miles per hour or 275 kilometers per hour. That's faster than many sports cars at the time. And here we're talking about a minivan with cup holders in every row. This wasn't family practicality. This was family practicality on steroids. And hey, if you're enjoying this madness so far, hit that subscribe button right now, because we've got plenty more hidden gems just as insane as this one, and you don't want to miss them. Of course, this kind of madness didn't come cheap. In the US, the R63 AMG started at around $85,000 in 2007. Tick a few options and you were at $95,000. In Europe, that translated to more than 90,000 euros, easily hitting 6 figures. Think about that for a second. That's Ferrari money, or S-Class money, for something that looked like, well, an airport shuttle. Unsurprisingly, buyers weren't exactly lining up. At the same time, you could buy an E63 sedan for less money, or a CLS63 for about the same price. Both of those were sexier, cooler, and much easier to justify. So when people looked at the R63 and saw the $95,000 price tag, most of them laughed and said, why would I buy this when I could have a proper AMG? And they didn't. In the UK, only 12 were ever sold. Worldwide, production lasted just 1 year, 2007, and in total, only about 200 units were ever built. Let that sink in. Bugatti built more Veyrons. Ferrari built more Enzos. This stupid, awkward-looking van is rarer than both of them, which is insane when you think about it. Nobody cared in 2007, but in 2025, collectors are suddenly paying attention. Because here's the thing, it might have looked like a potato, but it had the heart of a beast. Owners who were brave enough to daily drive one said it was equal parts hilarious and terrifying. The V8 soundtrack was pure AMG thunder. It chewed through rear tires like a fat kid through birthday cake. It drank fuel in single-digit mpg. If you drove it the way it begged to be driven. And the brakes? After a few hard stops, they basically waved a white flag. The thing was ridiculous to own, and yet you couldn't help but laugh every time you floored it. Journalists back then didn't know what to do with it. Car and Driver literally wrote that it defies categorization, which is magazine speak for, we have no damn clue what this is supposed to be. Others called it a rocket-powered daycare or an identity crisis on wheels. And honestly, that sums it up perfectly. But that's also what makes it so special today. Nobody expects a minivan to be fast. Nobody expects it to gap a Porsche at a stoplight. Which means when you roll up to a car meet in one of these, people barely look at you until you pop the hood. And then they see that hand-built AMG V8 and suddenly, you're not just the weird minivan guy anymore. You're the lunatic who brought a bazooka to a water gun fight. Of course it wasn't flawless. The M156 V8 in early years had some infamous issues, like head bolts that liked to fail and maintenance costs that could make your wallet cry harder than your kids in the third row. Add in horrific fuel economy and sky-high brake builds, and it's no wonder nobody wanted to keep these things long term. That's why today, out of the 200 or so that were built, even fewer survive in good condition, which makes the survivors true unicorns. And unicorns? Well, collectors love those. That's why prices, while still far from supercar levels, have started climbing. A few years ago, you could find one for as low as $20,000. Today, clean examples often list for $30,000 to $40,000, and that window is closing fast. It's still cheaper than an E63 of the same era. But for how long? Once the word really spreads that this is rarer than a Ferrari Enzo, don't be surprised if values shoot up. And let's be real, the looks? Yeah, it's still a potato. But almost 20 years later, that awkwardness has become part of the charm. Car culture loves weird stuff. The Nissan Cube, the Pontiac Aztek, Toyota Previa with a mid-mounted engine. They were ugly, but they had character. The R63 AMG, it has all that weirdness plus the power to humiliate sports cars. It's like if a dad bod showed up at the gym and casually benched 300 pounds. You can't help but respect it. Compare it to today's performance family haulers like a Tesla Model X Plaid. Sure, the Tesla is way quicker in a straight line, but it's quiet, clinical, soulless. The R63 is heavy, dumb, loud, and drinks gas like a sailor on shore leave. Guess which car enthusiasts actually want to drive for fun? Yeah, it's the stupid, loud minivan. So what's the legacy of the R63 AMG? Honestly, it's proof that sometimes car companies go off script and build something completely insane. It wasn't smart, it wasn't practical, it wasn't marketable, and it sold terribly. But nearly 2 decades later, that's exactly what makes it cool. It's rare, it's absurd, and it's unforgettable. The R63 AMG showed us that AMG engineers sometimes ignored the marketing team, chugged way too much coffee, and said, screw it, let's see what happens. And what happened was a family van that could hit 275 kilometers per hour and roast Ferraris at stoplights. It failed when it was new, but today, it's a legend, a hidden car gem if there ever was one. So would you daily an R63 AMG, or is this just peak midlife crisis energy? Let me know down below, and if you haven't already, make sure to smash that subscribe button so you don't miss the next hidden car gem we've got coming. Trust me, it's just as insane as this one.